Hi everybody, Dave Weiss here with the Glue Bomb Show. Oh, I am excited today because I'm finally getting to work on my 69 AMX again. You remember a friend of mine set me up with this one. It's the Johann Shirley Shahan 69 AMX Dragon Lady Super Stocker. Oh, I love this kit because if you remember, I once had a 69 AMX. I loved the thing, and it's exciting for me to finally get a kit. My friend Ken set me up with this one. I was so excited to get it. But there was a problem. This is probably almost a 50-year-old kit. I'm not sure that it came out in 69, but I would have to guess it came out close to that. And the problem with a 50-year-old kit is it's got 50-year-old decals. And when I went to put the decals in the water to put the first one on, that big side graphic, their Dragon Lady, it disintegrated. And I was, needless to say, a little sad. Because I had already painted the body to go like this. I could have painted it to look like the car that I had, but I really liked this design. I wanted to paint it this way. And so I had a problem, and I was thinking, well, I wonder if I could remake the decals. Right? Because I only wrecked one of the side graphics, and I have a computer, and I know how to use Photoshop. So I could duplicate that side graphic, and I could make it that we could put it on if I could figure out a way to make the decals. A long time ago, I had used the tester's kit that came out. Unfortunately, with that, they had small sheets of paper. And those small sheets of paper did not work with my printer at all. It was really hard. I wrecked a lot of paper, and the paper's not cheap. So I decided to go on Amazon. I went on Amazon and looked up water slide decal papers. And I found one by, I think, it's either Japanese or Chinese company called Decal. And it was fairly reasonably priced. It was basically 8.5 by 11 sheets. And it was about $14.95 for 20 sheets, which isn't really cheap, but it's definitely not bad. And so I ordered a set. And I got it home, and I scanned my decal in and fixed the broken decal, and I printed it, and I ended up with something that looks like this. So I was pretty happy with the way it printed. And the next step is you've got to spray it with clear acrylic. And so I did that. And the directions on the decal paper recommended that you use 3 coats. Now the first thing you need to do is you need to let the inkjet ink dry thoroughly. Because it's inkjet ink, which is water soluble, printed on a very glossy surface, which means that ink is just kind of floating there. You need to let it dry thoroughly, because if you touch it, you'll smear it. So once it's dry thoroughly, then you're supposed to put these 3 coats of acrylic on. Well, I did that, letting it dry thoroughly between each coat. I waited a couple days until it was ready, and then I cut out my first piece, and I went to put it in the water, and almost as soon as it hit the water, the decal curled off the backing paper. I didn't even get it on the car, it just curled off the backing paper. I went to attach it to the car, and it curled right off the car. It wouldn't even stick. Well, needless to say, I was a little frustrated. And it's not like $14.95 is a lot of money, but it was enough money that I really didn't want to lose it. You got my... It wasn't working. The other thing I noticed was I tried to scale the decals a little bit, because from the original box, they didn't quite fit the way they should have fit. So I knew I needed to reduce it a little bit, but what I didn't take into account was my scanner actually made it a little bit bigger. So when I reduced it, I actually reduced it to the same size it was, which created a little bit of a problem. So now I'm not only having fit issues, but it doesn't stick. And I thought back to a long time ago when I tried this. I tried it once with the tester's kit, the tester's decal making kit, and it worked okay, but the paper was very small and it wouldn't go through my printer right. So when I tried this, I thought, you know what, somebody had recommended to me that you don't put the 3 coats on. So on this one, I just put 1 coat on. And friends, that made a lot of difference. The other thing was it recommended hot water. Or warm water, anyway. This time I used cold water, and the cold water also seemed to make it work better. So anyway, this is what I came out with. Now, I'm touching this very gingerly because this doesn't adhere the way your basic model car decal adheres, right? It's not quite as well adhered. And so I'm going to have to spray this with a couple coats of clear to make it really, really stick. But you can see it's laying on kind of nicely. Now, you'll notice there's a little yellowing around the decal. That's because there was yellowing on the decal in the original, right? Because it's an older kit. There was a little bit of yellowing. I couldn't quite get rid of it. But I don't think it's a huge deal, so I left it alone. If you had a clear decal, you wouldn't have that. The thing I did notice was it is a little thicker. This product is a little thicker than your actual decal paper. And so it's got a little bit of a thicker film on it. You can see the line in it a little bit more. But all in all, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good product. There are a couple things to keep in mind with this. The first one is this. When you get a decal in your model kit, if you look at it closely, you'll see that there's a clear coat that's printed over each graphic. It kind of goes around it with a little bit of a border around the edge, right? This doesn't have that. You're printing on what is essentially one big decal. So when you cut these to put them on, you've got to cut them fairly close to the design. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of extra little plastic sticking over the edges, which won't work right and won't look right. So you got to trim it pretty close. The other thing to remember is there's two kinds of decal paper. There's clear background and there's white background. For this car, I use clear background because I'm putting it on white, right? For the most part. Now, the trick with that is it doesn't print white, right? The white is invisible. The white is transparent. You probably can't see it, but there's a Krager decal on this blue quarter panel here. You can't see it because the white didn't print, okay? The way around that would have been to print that on the white paper. But if you print it on the white paper, you also have to be careful that you leave you put an extra border around each of the graphics in your computer so that you have a little bit of extra space to cut into, because anything that shows through as white is not going to be transparent. It's going to be white. So those are two things to think about when you're designing and picking what colors you want. I have a few projects that I want to use this on, and now that I know it works, I'm kind of excited to try them. So again, this is something, it's not the easiest thing in the world to work with. It is a little more complicated than your average decal. But if you're like me, and you've got an old kit, and you want to be able to build it the way it is on the box, then you're probably going to want to look into this. From now on, when I build an old kit, I'm hoping that I can use the decal. But before I do any of that, before I even go cutting the sheet, I'm going to take it onto my flatbed scanner, and I'm going to scan a copy of it into my computer. So in case I have a decal problem, I can just go and pull that up and print it. Overall, I think I had a fairly successful project here. Now, I will say, I don't think these decals are adhered nearly as well as a decal would be adhered from the kit, from standard. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear coat this, a couple coats of clear. Another thing that I wanted to tell you is, they actually say on this particular decal paper, I don't know if this is how it is on all of them, but it actually talks about baking it onto ceramics. Make sure whatever you do not try to bake your model body. All right? It will melt. I know that's probably a duh thing for most people, but if I'm recommending a product or saying, hey, this worked for me, I want to make sure that I tell you about everything that could go wrong. It's not a perfect product. It's not a perfect solution. But if you have an old kit and you want to bring it back to close to its former glory, it's not a bad solution. You should try it. All right? Take care, guys. Have a great day. This has been a little long. We'll try to make them shorter next time. But hope you learned something and hope this helps you. Take care. And remember, model building is supposed to be fun. So have fun.